kia mau, kia kore ai, kia whiri, kia whakamau, tina, hui.
And the other thing I want to acknowledge is Ramataka. So we're in the phase of Kamaro Kioki, which is Kia Oti Ngā Mahi, just finish what you start. Nice one. So recording the meeting. This meeting will be recorded and subject to the recording being of suitable quality will be made available on Council's YouTube channel via a link on Council's website. Health and safety, emergency exits for the supper rooms are clearly indicated. If we need to evacuate the building, use any of the emergency exits and head towards Texas Street and assemble in the playground area. Please remain at the assembly area until the building has been confirmed clear. Extraordinary business. This evening we have Peter Flynn coming along at about 7 o'clock to speak on a topic, topic number 7 in the chairperson's report. I may bring this topic forward depending on how much time we have. If we've got enough time, we'll bring them forward if we get through other business. Apologies tonight. There are apologies from GP, Michelle, zooming in. I think that's everybody. I move that the apologies from GP and Michelle be received. Do I have a seconder?
Yep.
Karen, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, please say oh. The motion is carried. Conflicts of interest. Are there any conflicts of interest to declare? Acknowledgements and tributes. Does anyone have any acknowledgements and tributes they would like to make? Oh, of course, the first one is Tiki McGregor. And what about you, Gillies?
Three Gillies.
Yeah. So Tiki McGregor was the co-matua for Ngāti Hikawera, Hapu, and Three Gillies, co-matua Papua. Anyone else? All right, we'll move straight on to public participation. This evening we have Mark Shepherd joined with Trevor Simmons, speaking to us on the naming of the Featherston and Featherston Poe. Kia ora, ka pai, come get the two little up here. Yeah.
Kia ora everyone. Those that I haven't met in the past, my name's Mark Shepherd and I'm on the Fab Fetty steering group. You've all got the papers that we sent through. There's quite a lot there, so hopefully everyone's read those. I don't want to read the whole lot out, but and I'll also do my best to answer any questions or concerns you have tonight. Unfortunately, the manager that was leading this project has since left Fab Fetty, and the steering group member who was also working in with her on this is actually an Northern Christchurch final. So we'll do our best to answer. We've got, as I say, one of the carvers here who has been in the process.
It's now music.
Okay. So yeah, Trevor can also answer any other questions as far as something goes. So yeah, I mean, it's all there. If anyone's got any questions or concerns that they'd like to clarify, but
yeah, so we'll there might be some questions from members, but we'll actually deliberate about the request that we have a little bit later on in our meeting, in our group. But does anyone have a question for the carver, maybe? Are the carvers involved or Fab Fetty?
How's it going?
It's good. Yeah, it is. It's beautiful. There are some pictures available to look at.
Yeah.
It's all going quite good. The art side, like actually the construction side, but it looks great.
I suppose I do have a question around the whakapapa or the puraka that you chose to use to carve into the po. So what was the whakapapa in the...
Yeah, look, Frank and Wayne, it's written in the paper that the whakapapa was discussed through the local people and relates back to stories that created the name of Featherston from the Māori worldview to Paitumokai. And the story goes along a couple of lines, but the one that we followed is it was a valued pet that went to the name. We looked at the whole concept of what we really needed to do and to unite the people in the area, and the concept of the waka carrying us forward into the future and being constructed in such a way that it shows Māori embracing the new people coming in up the centre of it, and to chronologically date the arrival of those whānau to the Warwick region. We put the flag for that country's epoch, of the time, the 1800s, the 1900s, whatever it was. And the idea of the flags is to open up an expanded lesson for anyone who's coming through. They can see their country flag one as they come into the region. They might think, gee, that's an old version of it. I wonder what happened here. And then they discover that their people may have contributed to the felling of the forest, the clearing of the land, maybe the building of the railways, whatever time it was that they came through. We like the idea of the whole Homea Hui Taike, the waka coming together, tying together, showing us as one people travelling forward. So that's kind of like the whakapapa and the tūrako that goes into the ideas behind what
Sorry, I should have ended at the start. Apologies from the other two carvers. One was coming from the hut, and evidently the hill's been closed, and the other one was coming from Manawatu, and evidently they're having trouble coming across from that side. So otherwise there would have been the other two carvers here as well, Frank and Wayne.
Hi. Does anyone have any questions?
So is there an opportunity to come and look at it, in person?
Absolutely. It's at Fareham House.
Yeah.
The carvers are normally there on a Friday, Saturday and Sunday. On a Friday, they've got the school kids from St. Teresa's and Featherston School, both down there learning carving. We've got 4 desks set up, 4 workbenches set up where the kids are learning to carve. So anybody can get in there at any time that these guys are there, obviously.
Yeah.
And have a look through. But we can leave you I can leave you my details if you wanted to get hold of me, and I can make sure that these guys are going to be there. But yeah,
you guys are more than welcome anytime. We're here to pop in. If you're keen enough to jump on a pattern board, ladies and gentlemen, and learn a few patterns, you're welcome to put some patterns on the carving. As part of the community, we have that open. But just got to do the practice of the pattern boards, just to make sure it doesn't.
Around the consultation, was Kuhanui Marae consulted?
I believe Frank has whānau connections in all of the Māori aspects of it. He went through the whānau, talked to aunties and uncles, discussed, and then we had open forum in the community where people could come along and field any ideas or queries.
They're not mentioned in this paper. Kuhanui is not mentioned in here?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I was just going to say, yeah, because I heard you're the guys in Featherston, aren't you? Francis McNally Tamari is the bloke that's okay. Yeah, well, he's Kuhanui. So I'm not really sure why we're not mentioned, because that's really the only whakapapas.
That's right, it is. Kuhanui is marae that the late whakapapas back to.
Yeah.
My understanding.
That's his personal marae.
Yeah, it's our marae as well.
Yeah, that's his own out here.
Has it come to the marae committee?
No?
Has the kōrero come to the marae committee?
No, we haven't seen Francis. This is the problem I have. I'm trying to track him down, and because I wanted to do some work for us too.
Yeah.
And anyhow,
he was going to be here tonight, but he was just one of the ones I see can't get across from the hut. Yeah. So it would have been good to have him 3.
But that's why I asked if we can actually go. Yeah, when they're
You're
there.
more than welcome, guys, honestly. I'm sure that is a concern, but Francis is, in my personal experience, because I'm not Māori, I'm white, to be honest, I'm a Simmons. We're from this area. We had the honeybees, we were on the lake from 1858. I'm also an Abbott, so from Featherston, Abbott's Creek's named after my granddad. We had the valley up under Rimatakas, right up to the tea rooms. Clark's and Leonard Joseph Phillips had the other valleys. So, I'm from here. And Frank went to great lengths to make sure that every piece of history was accurately considered. So there could be no problems for anyone.
Yeah, I would, yeah, I mean, I trust my nephew. Yeah,
he's a great guy. He's amazing, gifted, right? I would call him a rangatira and a tohunga, but he'd probably shy away from that because he's very humble. But I've experienced a lot to do with carving in New Zealand. I got a tohu, I went to Wānanga and did my carving degree. And Francis gives good advice. He whakapapas everything back. He karakias. He has extensive knowledge of gods, medicine. He's an expert with weapons, and you couldn't get a better teacher. He teaches Rudolf Steiner schools and universities, and been overseas and represented New Zealand on many hikois into other countries, representing Māori. He's an amazing guy. True.
Did anyone talk to Hami Tapaiti? Was there any consultation with Hami Tapaiti? Because again, he would be a co-master there.
Hami's a good friend of mine. I actually never even thought of seeing old Hami, but he's Frank's uncle. And I think they get on wonderfully well. I'm sure Hami was
But Hami's not mentioned in this group of people who were consultants.
Again, a lot of the consultation that's in here was done by Sophronia, when she was managing it. So we're taking what she's told us. I mean, I'm more than happy to go back and ask these questions, find out why that wasn't in there, if they were consulted or spoken to.
When I approached him, he had no knowledge of the poem.
Okay, I don't.
He had no knowledge of it.
I've done some carvings for him personally and for Rangatana. He's a great guy. I'm sure if we sat down with him and he had a look at the whakapapa, he wasn't happy, but Frank's an expert. He honestly would never ever make a mistake with his whakapapa.
So the whakapapa, there's something here that I've read around Muritu. Is that right, Muritu?
Yeah, Muritu.
As some of the kōrero behind the poem was related to Muritu, is that correct?
Beg your pardon, can you say that again, sorry?
Muritu? That she lived on the western side of Tauranga River. It was a connection to her to the.
It's the second paragraph. Yeah, it's the second paragraph under his kōrero. There's a whole reference to a common tupuna, muretu. If you have a look at page 2.1, second paragraph. Both shared a common tupuna, muretu. Is that one?
Yeah.
I'm sure it's accurate, guys. I don't personally know that myself, but if it's in here and Frank was involved, it'll be right.
What about the whakapapa of the tōtara? Have you?
That was Wayne.
Yeah, but what? The rako, the tree, tragically had been undermined and fell up a river, and instead of it being chopped up for firewood, one of Wayne's personal friends and that got a hold of another guy who got a hold of the farmer, and they'd come back to Wayne with the offer of this tree. So it took Wayne a long time, about 3 years, and in the end, it was actually the kindness of other people in the community that helped him retrieve the timber. It was milled and stored. We know it's about 1,100 years old, counting the rings on it. It's right from the start was blessed and karakiaed. And when we initially took on the idea of the process, I think people don't realise it's processing, cultural processing the Māori worldview. But Frank, first of all, he had a karakia to his ancestors. Then Wayne and them had to talk about the wood and where it came from, and whether the spirituality of that part of the forest could be moved to sit in Tūpaimoka, or Paitūmoka, sorry. And then they had to have a talk about what types of things could be suitable to put on to the carving of the po there. And everything, like the whole process for me was a real eye-opener. There were that many karakias, there was consultations to Puna and ancestors, there were karakia to the gods, there was respect to the mahi, and all of these things were taken together. And then we sat down and we came up, we're going to use the mokai, the pet idea with the birds, and we're going to use the waka as the thing to bring the whānau together and make one waka for us to go forward. So you know what, there's so much that's involved, it's amazing, really, like on so many levels.
So where did you say that it came from?
Matahiwi, up the valley there, just outside Marston. And it was, I've got photos, you guys, of the tree and the retrieving of it and stuff, if you want to look. It was about 2 metres round at the root ball, and about a good 80 feet straight at one log going up. That's why we got it. It was too good to cut it to 4.
Sure.
Any other questions, anything you want to clarify?
Right, kia ora. I just really quickly like to thank you both for coming to present without your fellow carvers. So yeah, just appreciate that. Sorry, my dog just keeps doing that. So.
You're on mute, Pip.
That's because my dog was going nuts, so just quickly put it on mute. There is a lot of information in the paper, so really the only which the questions have been covered, I think, what we had there. Well, some of them, and it would be really good to be able to actually come and see what the work is and hear a little bit more. I thought I recognised the name Te Māori there, Terry. So yeah, it is nice to know that there is some kohinoe present there, because that to me was one thing that I didn't see in that presentation.
Yeah, thank you, mate.
Anyone else? Anything else to add?
So I've got a question. It's more of a question around any incidental costs. So other than the in principle kind of agreement around this, which we'll consider, is there any additional costs that you can consider? You haven't bring up kind of any estimates of what there could be?
Rare of anything.
Is it so that it's basically
everything's been covered?
Everything's been covered?
Yeah.
Where did the funding?
Through our DIA partnership. So we're just in the process now of getting the engineer to come out, and he's come out on site, had a look at the actual pole, and he's designing up a steel frame to go on the back. And looking at, initially we were looking at it so it would be embedded in the ground, but we've now looked at it being on plates, so that if need be, it can be taken above, off the ground and taken away for any sort of repairs or anything like that. So yeah.
But that's fully funded, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah. We found that with our rock sitting too close to the ground.
Yes. Oh, actually, yes, somebody.
Yeah, well, they closed it out because they were waiting on them to come and fix it.
Yeah, so they're going to be leaving it off the ground, so there's no the pole's not actually touching the ground. Yeah.
That's very important.
Yeah, and obviously it's got to be wind resistant.
Yeah.
So it's going to be on
exactly. It's another problem.
Galvanised frame.
Before you become aware of any kind of issues, what's the best way to raise that with you guys?
Yeah, just direct anything. I mean, Steph and Marina have got our details, and I can get hold of the carvers. But like Trevor said, more than welcome to come down there and just have a look. Come have a look. Come check this out. The more people can get down there to actually see and understand it, the better.
Oh,
this is about the pay you don't do for you guys, isn't it? Fighting the crop.
No, that's for the community.
Oh, you didn't fight the community.
Under Bad PD.
Okay. Thanks very much for coming to speak to us. I appreciate it.
Yeah, kia ora.
We'll have a discussion about it a little bit later on in our week and work out what we're going to do. Minutes for confirmation. Are there any corrections needed to the Māori Standing Committee meeting? 21. What page is that?
Thank you very much. Nice throw by
Yeah, Kate's fine.
Page 1. Yeah. Do I move the minutes of the Māori Standing Committee meeting held on the 8th of June a true and correct record? Right. Do I have a seconder? All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. All those against, please say poll. Motion is carried. This is report. Page 642. Harry, did you want to mention?
Yeah, I was just wondering, so one thought that I just wanted to ask the kind of this forum here. This is always a very dense report and we spend a lot of time. I kind of take it as we're just noting it. Yeah. Because we've got so many other issues and I think, is there an opportunity to just not have a detailed debrief?
Yeah, I always think there's just might be just a couple of things that need to be raised, and in this instance, the rates is definitely something that would be adhered with it.
Oh, well, let's move on. No, because honestly, unless there's something that you want to put
it is there for you, and so it's literally just to keep you informed. It's the same going to committee boards. Everything else. So got some question on the item, raise it. Otherwise, we'll just take it as read.
Is everyone okay with that? So
yeah, that's a big chunk, and I really want to make sure we clear this.
Yeah.
A couple of things. So that's 42, and now that's right. Do I have a move to receive the report? The opposite report. Thanks, Tony. Do I have a seconder? Yeah, Alex. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. All those against, please say poll. Motion is carried. Mr. Wilson, is there anything you would like to add to the report?
No.
So any questions or clarifications you would like to ask at this time?
And does anyone want to ask me a question? Or pretend to be knowledgeable?
So action items, we now move to action item 6.2, page 43 and 46. 46. Members, are there any questions or clarifications you would like to ask? Or any updates to the open actions? What have we got open?
There was one for me, I think it's the first open one, 655.
Oh, yes.
So we would like the action, we discussed it at our meeting, we'd like to have someone from that committee come and talk to us.
Oh, yes, can't quite, that's the action. Yeah, that's much better than that one.
Yeah. So which one was that?
That's 655. I wanted some representation.
I've been asking you a little while, but
yeah,
I really don't know what to do.
We'd like to understand that.
I love it.
This one is 244. Chair's report, action required.
Sorry, I'll just close out that one on the panel discussion of the community storage scheme.
What number is it?
I can't read the number.
247.
It's the last one. So Andrew and I basically there's a whole lot of literally no 10 water over the bridge on this one. So
yeah.
we'll just wait. That was the heat of the
That was a difficult.
Yeah.
That's 247.
247. So we're going to close it off.
Is it on hold?
Did you say?
Right now, just leave it on hold.
Yeah. It's a whole lot.
The main issue here is the dams literally have a robot that they can't find a consenting pathway.
Oh.
And so they're considering some of their options about how they can progress that, maybe via a board inquiry. So long story short, until we've got some certainty, it's actually going to go ahead. We don't know yet. Yeah.
And I think it's important to note that as soon as that the pathway or something is actioned, it'll be back here first before we look at it.
Okay, good. So 244, what are we outstanding on that, Steve? Ratify spending 1 through 3 equipment. That's already carried.
That's been done.
Carried.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. That's finished.
Yeah.
Delegate the ability for the chair to spend up to 500 from the Māori Standing Committee budget, subject to confirmation of this approach from finance officers. What they say?
Just the legislation.
Delegation. Oh, we're not allowed to.
What's the delegation limit?
It just doesn't permit the committee to sub-delegate
to, because it's a delegation through to the committee, it doesn't permit the committee to sub-delegate that to a member. But there is the alternative.
The terms of reference.
Yes, so we can change the terms.
We'll find a way.
In the terms of reference, and then when council signs off the terms of reference, it's effectively making.
Which is on your agenda tonight.
Yeah.
Nice one. Okay, thanks for that.
That was 500.
And then, oh yes, 248. Yeah, one on our strategy, we really need to give us the strategy one on our Andrea. So we were looking at August of 2021.
Yeah, which is
That's now.
So sometime this month, you know,
Or even a bit warmer, you know, because, yeah.
so we'll park that for next week. What's our next date for the next week?
so 8 weeks, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's actually in September.
Or in between our next meeting,
Yeah.
because our next meeting would be October.
Oh,
You know, like for here, isn't it? Because it's,
Why don't we try a Tuesday night in September? A Tuesday night in September.
yeah, so it's,
I'm not going to be.
You're singing on Tuesday night.
No. I'm starting a new. I'm kind of going to be not available most nights. So ideally a weekend.
oh, that's, yeah, weekend, all right.
So weekend if people are.
Say something.
oh, I was just going to ask, given my absence for a period, what are we strategizing about?
So what's the question, mate?
What are we strategizing about?
Huh?
Yeah, what are we strategizing about?
Yeah. Because I've got another question.
Well, basically our operations budget, that'll be one of the topics is what are we going to do with our money, and then how are we going to set ourselves up as a committee working with this council?
Yeah.
And we also, because we've now got funding to bring someone in the Māori liaison, where does that role fit in? What becomes our role? Are we more advisory governance whilst we have someone that works within council?
So when I was here last, we were pretty hot on the topic of terms of reference.
That's on tonight, finally. Yeah.
Is it done?
That's tonight.
It's in draft.
Okay.
We have one here, and I would like to ratify it tonight because it's still a living document, and we can still make changes because I know Papawai we have to address the letter.
Yeah, I'd like to make a suggestion there. That is, let's ratify it as it is, because we'll be waiting forever.
Yep.
Yeah.
Papawai to come back with something with a view to review.
Yeah,
You know,
yes, sounds
and
great.
it might also be, it could be a discussion point in our
And
one.
I wanna.
Yeah.
Yeah, good idea.
There's lots for us to talk
But
about.
that strikes me, that's the starting point for just about everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's good to have you around, Terry.
Sounds like a broken record at the moment.
Yeah.
I was hoping that was all sorted.
Wow.
But a touch of deja vu.
We're getting there. Right, where am I up to? Steph, quick.
Actions.
Still on the actions. Oh, yeah, action. So is that very last one?
Yeah.
2, 4, 8. So we're going to try and put a date to it. We're putting a Saturday in September. Saturday work for you?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, a Saturday in September. Does anyone have a date they want to throw out there?
I work every weekend. This is the only issue.
Yeah.
Pip would too.
If I can, when you're talking September, if I can plan it, I might be able to get around it, you know. You're talking a Saturday?
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's go the 19th.
The 19th. Yeah, that looks good to me.
Oh, I mean the 18th.
18th.
Oh, September. Okay. I'll write that down and I'll work around that.
18th of September.
We'll start that as a starting point.
Tentative date. What time do you finish work?
Well, because there's no point if I'm going to milk on the day, really, time in between is all I have. So it's better to take it all off.
Okay.
What about you, Pip?
I can't do Saturdays because of work, but I not until after I finish work, but that depends on how long, if you're looking at overnight, or if it's just going to be day or yeah, so I guess when we decide how long, what the time frame is that we're looking at, if it's going to be an overnight, I might be able to come, but in the evening. But
well, maybe we do a Nohoi Hawariki and overnight, We do something like that, and then we could have different parties come in to also talk to us to help. Do we? Is that worthwhile?
Would that work for people?
You can make it work if you plan far enough ahead.
Yeah.
I just have to check availability.
Yeah.
The only one for me is there's a 25-year award ceremony for the fire brigade on that night at Breckenridge. So
On the 18th.
On the 18th, yeah.
All right.
You think they might have a fire that night?
Do we expect it to take a long time?
Yeah. So that's a TBC, and so we'll work that with Tony and then circulate that information. Can't wait.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
The next meeting's 28th, so do you want to get through in time for that?
28th of which month?
September.
Is it? Yeah, we'll get in before.
We would go to be with that. Yeah. Sorry? We would be with that. Yeah. Oh, you'd be struggling. You'd definitely go to more meetings.
Right, so that's cool. So we're going to move to receive the actions item report.
I'll move that.
Do I have a seconder?
Aye.
All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried. Income and expenditure.
Can I just butt in here for?
Can't wait.
We've got Peter here already. Do you want to get him over and done with? I'm sitting here and oh, really?
Because I'm going to allow him a bit more time with us.
Okay.
Yeah. But thanks.
Thanks for thinking about it.
That wasn't very much. This on Papa Way anyway.
Where are we up to there? Yeah. Any questions or clarification you would like to ask? Just to note, I will be changing that Pō here. Don't even ask me why I came up with that word. It could be, it's not probably right, but changing it to total. Right. Any questions? Any questions? Do I have a mover to receive the income?
So I just have a question on all of this here.
Yep.
Whilst you've categorised it into different sections, there must be some flexibility in here to overrun on the budget. Just so long as you don't overrun the whole budget, right?
Yep.
Yes. Yep. Cool. Just so we understand it. So, you know, like you've got bugger all and whakapapa. So you might want to move something in
it's totally up to us. Again, one of the things we put in our strategy, our novel, is we look at how do we distribute our funding under our foreflow, our buddy type of we should really be focusing a bit more money. So we would have just got
so it's a total.
Yes.
This is your internal guidance.
So Papa could have got more money. No, never mind. You didn't know.
I thought you were such a white.
No, just so we're all clear.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And when we get to our law, let's talk about things like that.
Cool.
So, do I have a mover to receive the income and expenditure statement for the period of 1 July 20 to 30 June 21?
I'll move it.
Do I have a seconder?
Aye.
Kia ora, Karen. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. All those against, please say aye. Financial assistance accountability report, page 51 to 81. What's this one? Where is this one? Oh, okay, that's all the.
It's a summary of grants.
It's just all summaries of grants for the last financial year. One to look at though is 76, page 76 on the Uda or Wairarapa. So we went into an agreement with Te Rangi Uda or Wairarapa Kapahaka group to sponsor them $1,500 a year for the 3-year training. And that was with an MOU that every year they should present to us what their plans are for the year and give us some highlights of their previous year. And of course, they didn't go to competition last year because of COVID, but now they will be going to, so they're gearing up for that. One of the first things our pusi was used for was to pay for, I don't know the name of it, but the piece that goes in front of the guys.
Oh, yeah.
What's that called? Mano. Yeah, so they had been borrowing someone's for a long, long time, and they were allowed to I didn't have the funding to do it, so that was the first thing we did. And so yeah, Mark Queenie sent this through the other day, and again, hopefully you've always had a chance to read it. Yeah. But it's kind of nice, and I think at some point it would be nice for us to be able to say, can you guys come down to the south and do a performance?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Maybe a strategy.
Yeah, or that, another one.
Part of that is need to go through to team potentially, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is every 2 years. I suppose we can't, do longer than 3 years. It'd be nice if they could continue funding.
Yeah, well,
a 2 year gaps to time the team activity.
Yeah, I mean, that's all another thing to look at too. But so this is only for this triennium. So what will happen in September next year is the committee will make another arrangement or commitment in another MOU. So that went through to pages 1 to 81. We'll have a mover to receive the report. Kia ora, do I have a seconder?
Yep.
Kia ora. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, please say aye. The motion was carried. Terms of reference, page 82 to 91. Right. The only one thing I saw straight up is that in the quorum, we say 3 representatives from, there we go, Iwi or Marae, sorry, that's there. So you need 3 at least from Marae representatives or Iwi, and then, does that only make up, and Paiti Mōkai, isn't it? That only looks like 4 to me.
So you need 1 from each marae, that's 3.
3.
And Paiti Mōkai, that's 4.
Oh, okay.
And then the councillors.
What's our quorum? 5.
1 councillor?
Yeah, with our terms of reference quorum. Is that right? Okay.
5.
That's reasonable. Anything else? Anybody see anything to jump off the page?
Can you tell me about it quickly? Or shall I read it?
Well, we had 20 Hanganui do the first drafting for us.
Yep.
And then we Andrea in the south and Karen got together a couple of times to again, just workshop it. And then we had a wānanga here and we workshopped it again. So I think it's a lot more comprehensive.
Well, maybe I should get a copy of this.
Okay.
Can I just query something I've just noticed that I'm down as ex officio? I didn't think that was a government term anymore. Could you clarify that?
Oh, nice one. Okay. Yeah. What's it supposed to be now?
Full name.
He's got voting rights.
But that's your call. If you want to move that as part of it, I mean, I'm still happy to attend as an observer.
Sorry, what's the?
So ex officio used to mean that you would sit at the table, but you are not necessarily with voting rights.
Okay.
Is that
yeah.
So we would retain that, but instead of the words ex officio, we would put in the new words.
I don't think we are in the words.
It's just either you are on.
Well, so ex officio is just a really outdated term, and the requirements under the Local Government Act make it clear that the mayor is a member of all of the committees. So ex officio doesn't actually mean anything. So automatically the mayor would be included as a member of the committee.
So that needs to get
We just need to take out the ex officio and leave the mayor there.
So everyone has voting rights.
Yep. If you're a member of the committee, you have voting right.
But the terms of reference, we can decide who's in and who's out.
Who is the member? Yes.
Yep. Okay. No, I just want to be clear about it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's not easy. It's the law. It's very complicated.
Another thing, Terry, is that we added in more stakeholders. So now we are acknowledging the iwi entities, the settlement trust. Yeah, so they're in there. Wellington Water, it's another stakeholder with us as we are. So that's all been updated. Everyone's got any comments on the terms of reference? I mean, remember the one that we had way back in 2017 was terrible. It was a cut and paste of all everybody else's. And some of it still had Greytown Community Board in it and everything. So this is much more shaped around Māori and for us.
Ian, I've just got one query actually. One of the key changes. So I'm actually on Stella. So I'm not sure, under discussion, right down towards the end, bottom of the page, about one of the key changes in relation to resource consent. So I just wanted to make sure that that part was actually really robust, because I guess giving it out to another area rather than it coming through the Māori Standing Committee to ensure it's going through to the right area. Yep. I'm not sure how what everyone's read through with that, because I still think it's really important that tangata whenua and mana whenua actually are able to cast their eyes over what's going on there. And it says the committee will no longer have responsibility for assessing resource consent applications relating to land situated in the rural zone. I
don't know. Is that in there?
Yeah, that's the discussion, isn't it? We're talking about the difference between the overarching discussion paper and then there's the actual terms of reference.
Yes.
Yes. So isn't that addressed? So I think you're referring to the paper that is before the actual terms of reference, yeah?
Correct.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And it's saying that that's one of the main differences.
Yeah.
One of the key changes to there. So I'm just.
Yeah.
That was discussed quite a lot and quite thoroughly.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not in the operations side of resource management consent.
So what did it shifted the set of the
under Te Tiriti or Waitangi? I'm just wondering if there still needs to be some kind of oversight on that. That's all.
Well, I need the rural Māori. So I've always only ever been interested in rural consent.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about here in town. Yeah.
So that's the point of this, is saying it's the hapu that the council should be consulting with, not this committee.
Yeah, not this committee.
Yeah. Okay.
So the Māori Standing Committee. And that was the essence we had as a group. It was really putting the locus. Council's responsibility is to make sure that hapu are consulted around the resource consent.
So Harry, are you talking about you would actually get directly in touch with each marae, or how would you get in touch with the hapu?
Well, in our case, anything coming down south, if it's not coming through the standing committee, it needs to come to me, or in this case, on behalf of Waitangi.
Yes, I think Tony. Yeah, Pip, I think that it may be answered by section 6 deliverables in the actual terms of reference. There's a specific reference to provide advice on the hapu responsible for cultural. So there's still an element, but it's not us doing it. It's us recommending who are the right people to engage with. So that's a fundamental shift, because previously it was unclear.
So I can understand what you're saying. I just want to make sure then that the lines are clear on how they get and who is meant to get in touch. So if it's not going to be the Māori Standing Committee, will there be a list of names that the council can directly go to ensure that it's correct?
Go, Karen.
Hi, Pip, Karen here. Yes, we still need to work out that detail and how that will work through, and part of the discussions around how the Māori liaison person, if it is a person, but broader than that, how that will interact with that particular function, and make sure that the right process is followed.
Okay, cool.
No,
thanks, Karen.
But just to give you some confidence, there was a long discussion we had at one of our workshops around the terms of reference. So this isn't a council view. This is actually what the committee they tested out. So this is actually the right place. It should be a Bahafu. The Māori Standing Committee should tell us.
Like I say, I understand that. I'm just wanting to make sure that it's actually clear on how. But I guess that's like Karen just reiterated. That's actually something that's still being worked on.
Yeah.
Can macrons be put on all the papa?
As well.
And update on the right annual plan under.
I had that point.
We'll make sure that it's all up to date.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other pathway?
So we're going to look at the delegation of it.
Yeah, 6.6. Okay, so points to raise. Thank you very much, Stephanie. Terms of reference includes delegation to attend council, planning and regulatory and assets and services committee. Does the committee also want the terms of reference to specify attendance and speaking rights at the Finance, Audit and Risk Committee. This hasn't been on the terms previously, but can be added if there is interest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thought so?
Yes, absolutely.
Especially those that are interested in finance.
Yeah.
It's just historical. We went back some way and it was just never included.
Yeah.
Maybe there was just not the committee. But, yeah.
So what does that mean in just normal language? So
Adding it.
Adding far, but if I was committees, yeah.
But if I was to go along to those meetings, are you saying that I have a voting right?
Speaking right.
Speaking right.
Yes, because well, as it is now, I've only allowed on the table. That's only happened in the last year.
Yeah.
And I could add to the discussion, but I
Not right.
no vote.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And
a lot of my time going.
We cannot vote on any of these.
Because you're not elected.
No.
Yeah, as it is at the moment.
At the moment.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, going to come out of our discussions and how we, and also the government's review, and also what's available or can be done under the Local Government Act.
Yeah. And also like moving towards Māori wards or something similar. Like this is where those committees, where we should be able to have a voice in there, and then also maybe the vote sits with Māori Standing Committee rather than establishing a Māori board. But that's all,
up for discussion.
Still absolutely. But this is getting the foot at the table.
Yeah.
It's not getting in the vote, but it's getting the foot at the table to be part of the whole thing.
And I think hopefully Nerita knows that she can come to any way, but we make it formal, but any committee meeting you're able to come along and make place to take.
I can't always make those. I try.
Just for clarification, it can only be the chair then, or can it be anyone that's nominated from the Māori Standing Committee? Just because I know that everyone kind of works and things, and so Nerita may not always be able to be there, but there may be something on there that's really important to the Māori Standing Committee, and so if someone else is able to go in their place, or
the chair or the delegate.
Yeah, chairman's
discretion. Yeah. So just going back to action 244, does the Māori Standing Committee want to include a delegation for Māori Standing Committee chair to spend Māori Standing Committee funds in the terms of reference? That's we do that. You do that for us, Karen, and do that update. So do I have a mover to endorse and recommend to Council the adoption of the Māori Standing Committee terms of reference?
Yeah, I think we want to have it
with those changes.
Do we want all those
subject to those changes?
Yeah.
Subject to, okay, so
we've got a recording.
Yeah, so we can accept it subject to those changes, and then you'll do those updates and then circulate that out to us again.
But do you want to record the comment that it's acknowledged that these are a living document and that just to reflect the corridor that
something you need to build something. But allow us to if you want.
Yeah, there's a living document. It can be changed by resolution.
Yes, just so that we know that.
And I accept that, except I haven't read it. So on behalf, and saying I'm the only one here from Courtenay, I assume Teresa's had a copy of this. I've never seen it. All I'm getting at is I'm happy for you guys to, but at the same time, I don't know whether I can say on behalf of Courtenay that we ratify that, because I've never read it.
Pretty cool, because like Suzanne was here for that workshop.
Correct. So did she ratify it? If she did, I'm happy with that.
She was involved in
yeah, I'm all.
It hasn't changed.
But also, Dan,
and Terry, it's only being ratified kind of tonight, so you haven't missed out on anything. It's but it's more just you needing to see the document, right?
Yeah. But if Suzanne means I'm cool with that, because all she said to me is, "Can you come back?" While she was gone. So
yeah. So right, we've got those bits. Steve, happy?
Yeah, I've got those changes as well as Karen's going to
little document very soon. Okay. So do I move to endorse and recommend to the Council the adoption of the Māori Standing Committee terms of reference?
Aye. Aye.
Do I have a seconder?
Yep.
All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, please say no. Motion is moved. There is a minor amendment. Okay. The alcohol bylaw 92 to 93. anyone want to make a comment?
Sorry.
When the main change here, despite what is that we're required in setting this bylaw to have evidence of a problem. It's not just because you would think there might be a problem. So in essence, this removes a number of restrictions about public places where people would not be able to consume alcohol, and simply focus on events like Toast, where we would have a specific intervention around the event, not the general. Makes sense?
But it does add the ability for areas to be added, alcohol ban areas to be added by council by resolution. So if there was another temporary event, or also if there was another area where we had enough evidence that there was a particular problem, then council could add that by resolution.
Oh, right.
For instance, there was a general bylaw on the main street around Featherston saying you shall not consume alcohol. I mean, but there's not been a problem in Featherston in years on terms of the main street. So we're just removing all those general restrictions. So it relies on evidence as the main thing.
So I've just got a couple of questions. So the first thing is on first paragraph, section 1, proposed alcohol, the second paragraph, and it talks about based on officers' analysis and pre-consultation engagement with community boards and the Māori Standing Committee. So I didn't know what that meant. What's the pre-consultation engagement?
It hasn't happened yet.
So that was conversation, public conversations that I had with Maria about was there anything particular in the bylaw that impacted Māori in a different way that we would need to, we felt that we should come and consult with you, particularly before we went out with the bylaw. And we agreed there was nothing particular, unlike the next item, we were talking about smoke-free environments. And this is about places. And, you know, I think there was a common understanding from all the different stakeholders we talked to about where there had been problems and there were no problems anymore. And so that was that consultation. It was just a pre-engagement consultation. We can come on to whether the committee actually wants to put in a submission on the bylaw.
We're starting, this consultation starting at the first meeting.
So it's just opened.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So it was pre-engagement. It was really just to inform us on do we have enough understanding about what the issues are to be able to draft the bylaw to go out.
I see.
So there's consultation in each town going ahead from the 16th with anybody who holds a licence.
Just the one meeting.
No, it's one. There's 3.
No, there's one meeting.
Not this morning. It's right hand one.
So okay, do I have a move to receive the alcohol control bylaw and smoke-free environments policy report?
So can I be smart? I haven't even finished. So the smoke-free one, I don't know about anyone else, but I started to read the paragraph on Māori are likely to be disproportionately impacted due to higher blah blah. And I just didn't feel like if we were having the cultural audit and all that, I don't know that that necessarily is the way it's been articulated is necessarily in the best way. And I do wonder if we're going to be making comments around Māori, we as a committee would have an opportunity to review that, because and particularly in government, I mean, I have a few work in government, and they're very careful around the languaging. It's very, so it's just we're on a journey. I understand that, but when I looked at that, and it didn't actually necessarily seem to be a balanced view, because then I looked at since 2006 the numbers have reduced. So again, I just think we have because if we focus on what we're here to do, I would have thought that when there are references around this, we should at least have an opportunity to look at it. And I don't know, others might have a different view, but I just, when I read it, and I've read other things, and I thought, don't know if this is the best.
It puts it a light straight off.
It's very deficit.
Yeah.
Yes. So I imagine with our liaison officer, and so these are the sorts of things that when something's in a public document, that we should at least have an opportunity to say, hey, hang on a minute, maybe there's another perspective that hasn't been reflected. That's it.
No, and I completely take your point. we wanted to highlight within the report that Māori are disproportionately impacted because of statistics, and the statistics and the information that we've taken has been provided by the Cancer Society and through Regional Public Health and the Ministry of Health, and various strategies around particularly focus on Māori, because Māori do have higher smoking rates. I do take your point around messaging, and then we don't always want to be saying the negative story, because it's obviously not about the negative story. The intent was to specifically draw the committee and people's attention to this is a matter that we think is particularly concerning, and that we do want to address through a policy, and we do want to have the committee's view, if the committee wants to provide its view around that. So that I think that would be helpful. Intent to have that.
Nice call, Tony. And do you think our liaison person, that it would be a role that was our person doing, was reviewing?
Yeah, well, we've still got the cultural audit to occur.
Yeah, yes.
And then we've got a liaison, you know, so I imagine that those two things will help us to deal with these differently.
Sorry. All right, is everyone else okay? Move to receive the alcohol control bylaw inspectory environment policy report. Mover. Karen. Do I have a seconder? Karen. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Please say aye. Motion is carried. Chairperson's report.
Sorry, there was a resolution around, there was commentary around what involvement the Māori Standing Committee did want to have in the development of the policy. Sorry, I don't think it's picked up in
as an action,
as a recommendation. So in terms of actually working with officers, with myself on developing the policy, I mean, responding entirely to Tony's comments, we need to make sure that when we move forward with a policy, that it's that we're actually got the right input and got the right messaging, the right language.
Yeah. So I raise a resolution that the officer should
yeah. Do you want to come to for this to be with the committee, or through yourself, Marita, or through another person? Just we're kind of on a tightish time frame. Unfortunately, it's been driven by other.
Is it more to say that because we realise there's some time pressure, is that if we were to do this again, it would be tabled and whatever?
It's just 8 weeks away, you mean? So
it's really a note.
It's really a note.
It's ongoing. We're right at the beginning of developing the policy now. So what involvement in the development of the policy does the committee want to have?
Would you like to?
No. So what I was.
Sorry, Tony. You carry on. Sorry.
I was just going to say it's a resourcing issue, and we're all time poor. So my view is yes, ideally in a perfect world, if we had the resource here, they would do that. Yeah. But we don't. So it's just signalling that these are the kinds of things that in the future, with the resource in place that has the time to do that, they would. But I'm not, and I don't know the timing of this, so if that's not going to align, then, but ideally in the future, any consideration of policies with things like this, we would involve.
Yeah, that's the way of operating going forward.
Yes.
I wouldn't mind being involved.
Okay, cool.
In some sort of capacity.
Nice.
Is that right, Steve?
Thank you.
Thank you.
We just minute, if we can minute that, Andrea would be the kind of the lead contact.
Yeah.
Cool. So Chairperson's report, pages 92 and 93. Just about there, Peter. Are we in? 7 o'clock. Let's receive the report for starters. Do I have a mover to receive the Chairperson's report? Do I have a seconder?
Aye.
Andrea, all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. All those against, please say cold. Motion is carried. Right, questions and clarification. It's on page 92 to 90. Oh, it's not. Yep. Chairperson 94 to 96, I've got 92, 93. Michelle wants me to table, she wants a response to the Paparai Trust letter from Māori Standing Committee. So I can do that and send it around.
Yeah.
You want to edit? and then try and get this done by the 10th of August. Stop, put a time and date on it and just get it done. And then we've endorsed terms of reference at this meeting. And the approval of $69.57 plus GST to me, to be 4 hours, come from the home, and approve a further $130.50 plus GST for the purchase of the flight monitoring projects being carried out by Goodnoo, Marae, and Waitemata. I've got them in the car, Terry. I might give them to you. So we ordered 2 large bike nets and 2 smaller size bike nets for you guys and Waitemata. And that was the difference. I think we'd put aside $9.50 and it came to an extra $130 plus GST.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so all of those recommendations, I'd like to move all of those. We would like to second, please. And all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. All those against, please say Cole.
Madam Chair, can I be?
Yes.
Sorry. You'll see white first. You'll see white first.
So, topic 1, long-term plan artwork. Have everybody read that? What page is our map, please? Is it? Where is it in the document? What page? That's my front section. It's on the front section.
It's 98.
It's right at the beginning.
Nice.
It was so much nicer than one.
Sorry, actually in the long-term plan itself, setting direction.
Yeah.
That page is 10 and 11.
Yeah.
It is.
Was it 10? Yeah, 10. This doesn't have the page number on, so. Nice.
If I could
Here we go, folks.
Sorry, what are you looking at?
The long-term plan. So this is the South strategic framework for 2050. So there was a body of work that I myself and the guys from Arts Creatives down in Christchurch and Karen and Jill, we all worked on this, and the whole thing behind it was to represent, to be create a document that was more, that resonated more with Māori.
Yeah.
What page is it? I'm so sorry.
It is Stella. It's 98 in Stella.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
And so we looked at that more of a raku and beneath the ground, having strong connections with people and places, and a vision and our whakatauki. And then as the tree grows in strength, it uses, well, in this case, you have the strategic drivers and the vision for the future. And then they create the outcomes of social wellbeing, economic wellbeing, environmental and cultural wellbeing, which also matched up to our po of tautoko, marae wawa, tā, whaiau, and whakapapa. So, yeah, I was quite pleased with that document.
I don't think Council Laws realised that. I think you may be able to agree with me that we were delighted to see it. It was an incredibly marvellous surprise.
Well, it's very, very different to what has ever been produced in the past, you know, and yeah, that was like a discussion over a year ago, back in October last year, around a lot of the, you know, tauiwi structures always top to bottom, whereas Māori often view things from the ground up. And so just to keep pushing that whakaaro through, and even managed to get a hapori, a little H next to Featherstone. And the Tahitanga flag, is it? Oh, yeah, Tahitanga flag. So I didn't realise it was a different flag, but it is. I thought it was a Tiratanga flag. So halfway.
Chair, can I just add, just for the committee's benefit, that Rita put in many hours
absolutely.
To help us to develop something that we can all be really proud of, reflecting all our discussions that we'd had. We weren't quite there, and we weren't quite there, and we weren't quite there, but we knew it was really important to get it right. So I just really want to pass on my appreciation of Narita's hard work.
Yeah, no, I think we should be proud of it. Very different approach to anything in the past. Right, what else are we up to? Slide 2, update of engaging well. Oh, just to let you know, engaging well is no longer available to carry out the cultural audit, but no problems there. When we get to our board, we'll have another discussion around that. Tony's got some other suggestions and some other ideas of how to do that for us.
Yeah, bring your own.
Yeah, bring our own suggestions, I think.
Yep. Yeah. And topic 3, membership for Māori Standing Committee. So with no letter notifying us of withdrawal of Rangitane or Wairarapa or Kohanui Māori representatives. Yeah, Terry, did you want to speak to it?
Yeah, because Suzanne and I, we didn't realise that was something that Teresa was going to propose. In fact, we were taken by surprise, and hence one of the reasons I'm here, because when, as you know, when Suzanne decided to resign from here and Mariah and move back over the other side, I asked her, because I'd only heard about what had happened, what had transpired apparently in one of your committee meetings, and that was true. And I said to Suzanne, did you know about that? And she said, no. And we both did it, and hence why I'm here. I'm not sure. All I know is Kohanui has been part of this committee since it started, and so we'll continue. That's all. I'm not sure, and I haven't spoken to Teresa. I have no idea, and she's never brought it up at any of our trustee meetings or anything. And so all I'm saying is I'm back on behalf of Kohanui for now.
Sure. That's one.
Until I can find someone else. I had a different plan there. And I'm pleased, you know, from what I can hear, there's a lot of progress has been made, and great.
It's nice to have another toenail.
And kia ora, Terry, because honestly, I think it's so important to have a voice for Kohanui on this committee.
Well,
and yeah, we really appreciate the fact that you're here. So yeah, kia ora.
Yeah, thanks.
Powerful. So Rangitane or Wairarapa currently has no appointed representative following the resignation of Carly Tito at our meeting May 21. So Tito had always said she was the next one up, but never formalised it. So at the moment we have no one for Rangitane.
So just vacancy.
A vacancy, yeah. Topic 4 is the citizenship ceremony. So I've been asked to table this one. Would anyone like to read it? Would anyone like to do this, be part of it?
So my first point was when they have the national anthem, we should be thinking about the real vision.
Yep.
That was my only main point. So I think it's.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what version do you guys think?
It'll be the correct.
And then
followed by the first verse.
And then English.
But also, should there be a waiasu at the end or some closing part? Might be listed there.
It's got powder.
In the past.
They've done it in the past.
They've done it in the past, I see. So anyone else who'd like to participate?
Yeah. So I guess that, this is one of the things that council will come to this committee for, either some guidance or support.
Yeah.
So and this thing only happens once a year.
This liaison officer, will he be able to give them that sort of guidance, or does it always have to come to the committee?
No, I think if we set, it can come to saying that there is a citizenship ceremony upcoming and what involved. Would you like to continue what we did last year, or do you want to change it or adapt it? And I think it's nice to come to this committee, as opposed to someone just saying this is probably what should happen.
Okay. I think it should still come through here.
Yeah, that's
even if our person, well, I'm talking like it's really happening, but our person's in there and then attends our hui and says, is a reminder this is coming up. Is anyone else available to come and participate? So you have to think about it. And let me know, it's the 16th of August. It's not just around the corner.
Hey, one of the things that had been bandied around as well was looking at having them on different marae. So not just using halls.
Nice.
And that it would be really nice to actually, you know, rather so instead of the Greytown Hall using, you know, maybe having Papua, because some of these ones that, you know, they're getting their citizenship and they might have been here for 7, 14, 30 years and not set foot on a marae. So it's, you know, it's just something that some people haven't had the opportunity to do. And so it was just kind of put out there just to maybe check and see how each of the marae feel about that, because they're part of the community and it would be really nice, and it's something that, you know, we do on the marae, isn't it? We're
so I guess that's for the representatives here tonight to take back to your trust and your marae and give us some feedback. But in the meantime, I can't imagine that feedback coming all in and bubbles up by the 16th. Yeah. So maybe this particular one, what might be the action that we did this one for the 16th?
I do know. I think Papua has had one on their marae. But I'm not quite sure how that went, and it may have been previously. Like I'm not sure. You know, it was maybe a few years ago. So
it does tend to rotate around the different towns, so that could rotate around the marae. So you'll get more warning of this hopefully next time. This is the first one we've had for nearly 2 years because of COVID.
Right, yeah.
So it's Anzac Hall, so at this time it's like who's able to go along the total for this ceremony.
Do you think, sorry, Andrew, what you want to say?
Oh no, I was just thinking, does this usually happen at this time of year?
Yes.
Normally?
Usually, it can vary depending on the numbers.
Yeah.
So in Auckland, this is done over 3 days in 20-minute shifts. Of 20 at a time.
And apologies, guys, we've got a Martinborough Community Board meeting that night, so won't be able to attend. But
anyway, if everyone can take it back to your marae and trust and have a discussion, see if you're happy to have it on a marae, which means a different process for us, so we have to really be considerate of that, and again, people, time available.
But I'd love your guidance on whether or not the order of service is works, or you'd like to add anything to that.
True.
And
but in the interim for this one, should I try Holder? See if he might. He's quite busy too, isn't he?
Yeah, it's such short notice. It's the only thing.
Does the program look all right though?
I think the program's fine.
Cool. About the 16th is set up.
How many new citizens have we got?
Yeah, how many citizens?
Right.
We're looking at many, Alec.
I actually haven't seen the list.
And I guess you're talking South Wairarapa base.
Yeah. Topic 5. Oh, that's a big discussion actually. Wellington Water, Mana Whenua. I might come back to that one.
Yeah.
Topic 6, expenditure. So that's around the bike nets, and we've just done that. That's it. How high? I'm going to invite Peter. Would you like to come up? You guys come up. Everyone come up.
Shall we move your recommendation?
Should we move all of that?
Yeah, your recommendations, though, Narita, from your.
We've done that. Yeah, we did that one actually. So Peter, this is Peter Flynn's runner. Simone, come on. Oh, you can come up to our table. You're on Barlow now. So everyone, this is Peter Flynn, and I had a conversation with Peter about 2 months ago actually. And it was around Māori, it was actually a different topic, but we got onto the Māori Standing Committee, and turns out Peter was part of the Māori Standing Committee from inception. From 1996.
You're in the early days, with Māori, so the old man in it, and Harmy would have been on me.
Yeah.
So I just found it like really interesting because us as the Māori Standing Committee today, we have been taking a bit of a battering, and and I just thought it was interesting to talk to Peter because the reasons and intent that you had back then actually still
the same.
The same and resonates with this committee today. And I just thought maybe we just need a bit of aroha and reinforcement that we're still the right intent and purpose. And so over to you, Peter.
Well, thank you. What came back, was saying to give an understanding of the history of the committee, the purpose at the time, what were the aspirations, and what was happening in the Wairarapa prior to the committee, i.e. tribunal discussions. And I thought, that's a lot. Steph was very kind because I've biffed all my papers, various committees. So did I. So did I. And I think, what the council has is relevant. It talks that it started in 1993. It took 3 years to crank up. And then I did remember that it was modelled on the Wairoa Māori District Council Committee. So there's that aspect, but purpose and aspirations, and I thought, with the tribunal, I think sort of Hami is possibly the most relevant person if that aspect could help. So I thought what I'd do is just talk from my perspective and describe how I got involved and what was happening. Basically, I was on the committee because I got asked. My memory was George Hawkins and Heather Maranui.
So you were on for, I think,
at the time, we came through Heather. I was going to explain how I got involved, but it was sort of through Papua. But at the time, I was the secretary for the Moro Māori Committee. But we used to meet at Papua. How I got involved was I came to Greytown August 79, and I had the local pharmacy there for 11 years. And Heather Maranui, one day in the pharmacy, said, "Are you interested in Māori health?" And I went, yeah, I am. And had no idea what was to happen. Heather went on to form the first hauora for the Wairarapa, and I was the first secretary. So we were delegates through with Grant Maranui through to the runanga of Ngāti Kahungunu. But at the time, sort of the Māori voice in the Wairarapa was the Wairarapa Māori Executive Tai Whenua. And how that operated is that there was a monthly meeting on the marae. So it started at Kohanui and it would move up the valley. And business was discussed on the marae. And there were delegates from each marae to engage with government. There was education, health, justice, and social welfare. So I initially started as a delegate from Papua through to the Wairarapa Māori Executive Tai Whenua. That changed with the Sea Law deal and the fish fight that went on, and also the Runanga Iwi bill that sort of fractured that committee, and you had the Rangatani Iwi Inc. Incorporated set up, and then Ngāti Kahungunu ki Wairarapa Incorporated. At that stage, Ngāti Kahungunu ki Wairarapa had an office in Masterton. We stopped the monthly meetings up and down the valley. It was centralised, but then the Iwi Authority went into receivership. At that stage, you know, I was on delegate from Papua to the Fisheries Committee. There was a lot of discussion within Māoridom about the mana whenua and population basis for the division of assets. I was also on, I was asked to go onto the Community Health Committee. And for quite a while, anything scientific that came over the desk was, oh, Pete, can you know, because I could handle the science. I was also asked to represent Ngāti Kahungunu ki Wairarapa to the Intiwi Forum on Aratahi, and I did that for 11 years because during that period, Ngāti Kahungunu went into receivership and didn't really have an operating office as such. Tom Paku was doing a lot on the hoof. And every 3 years I said, anyone else wants to do this job? But I eventually stopped when there was re-elections and the iwi authority cranked up. So through that process, I was asked to be involved with the district council. But at that time, the interface was challenging, you know. I can remember the first, some of this is involved in the regional council, but to me it was all the same, you know. And I remember the first plan that came out from the regional council. They wanted me to get the Māori voice on, it might have been discharge to air or water plan or something. And it was $500. And so I thought, oh, okay. And I think at the time there were 9 marae. So I thought, oh, 500 divided by 9. I'll go and talk to the monthly meetings, the koha down and say, you know, tell me what you want in this report. So I went to the regional council and sort of said, oh, could I have that 500? And they said, no, no. Once you've done the report, and if it's okay, we'll give you 500. And, and what I learned from Heather and Grant Maranui was that they approach things from a treaty perspective. So with the old Masterton Hospital board, we met with them and we, how I used to say to people that I was involved with, is that I see you as an agent of the Crown and this is a treaty discussion. Sadly, I can recall CEO of this organisation when I sort of said, hey, this is sort of a treaty issue. There's some, and the CEO said to me, rubbish, Pete, what has the treaty got to do with this committee? You know? Wow. And I thought, whoa, you know. On another time, I remember at Papua, the auntie said, oh, Pete, can you talk for us? So I did. And I remember at the time, I remember the person, and halfway through the discussion, he sort of said, oh, so Peter Flynn knows all the answers. He's the only one talking or something. And I went, no, no, no. And I tried to explain, but we got nowhere. So I found, you know, the gap between the understanding when you come to the table representing the treaty and an office that is just following policy was just such a frustrating encounter because you came to the table. When you talk of aspirations, I guess, you know, it's the aspirations of the treaty to me is what I came to the table with. And it was 9 years of frustration because it wasn't understood, wasn't acknowledged. And I suspect the motivation for the district council, I can't talk for them, but I thought it's possibly I have a cynical view on some of these involvements, but it was to help with the Resource Management Act. So we would turn up there was no funding. There was the time allocation. During that process of getting information, I sort of cut my teeth on a process where you always took information back to your marae and hapu and took information back up the chain. So there was often no time at all to take the information back to the maraes. Yeah, it was a very frustrating process trying to handle what was coming over the desk. I did write things down, but I think I've gone all over the show. Yeah, so, but another influence that's quite strong for me is that I didn't grow up in New Zealand. I always identified my granny as Māori, that's my mum's mum. Her connections are, my mum grew up in Tolaga Bay, so connections there to Aitanga Hauiti. And my granny's mum is a cracknell from Pakipaki, so connections to Te Hauki. So I came to school in New Zealand, boarding school, knowing my granny was Māori, but no involvement with sort of marae protocol and like that. So when I got involved, I felt very much at home. Papua embraced me. Yeah, so it was from my first 20 years were in the Solomons. And coming to school in New Zealand, I couldn't understand why my classmates were saying horrible things about my granny. So I'd often tell my schoolmates to pull their head and say, oh, it's my granny. And I can remember my fourth one, I gave a talk, it was debating and oratory. I gave a talk on racism in New Zealand. And, I was told, piss off, Flynn, go back to the islands. So maybe a chord was struck. But it was quite evident to me, growing up in the Solomons, coming to New Zealand, what I experienced. Yeah, so that aspect, it's more acknowledged now Indigenous people's rights. So that was sort of my childhood, really. So that sort of reaffirmed what I came in contact with being involved with marae. Things have dropped off recently when the Waitangi Tribunal started gathering its claim because of my connection to Te Hauki. I stopped in involvement. But I'm still involved with Māori Health. I'm involved once a week with the marae out in the hut, and that's good. But yeah, I've often wondered how the committee is going, because I see the interface of government and local government ought to reflect that treaty. And, maybe one day it'll have more traction, but certainly my experience. Nan Niniwa Munro asked me to make a submission on the 262 claim from the perspective of involvement with Māori and the interface with local government. And, it wasn't a good one. I remember the judge sort of said, sounds a bit rough or something. And he said, oh, what do you think you need? And I thought, help. And I said, well, patience, really, because it's such a process.
Someone got any questions on paper? Anything you want to ask? Did you know Karen's dead?
No, Laurie.
Yep.
Laurie.
Oh,
She was
yeah.
one of the early original.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Oh.
Didn't you do a brochure for the committee years ago? Didn't you help them construct a leaflet?
Yeah, we put a brochure.
Yeah, the touristy type thing.
Yeah, yeah. I think the council still has it.
That's where I remembered you from.
Yeah. There was a cultural landscape map for the South Wairarapa. I've still got a copy of that.
You guys have seen it? Yeah, I remember it took a while, didn't it?
It took a while.
Yeah. And that was in my early days when I got pulled along to the committee and Peter was here doing that presentation on that.
I'd love to.
And we printed up a whole lot and we got distributed out. But it was a good little document and I gave a copy to my son. He was going to do a little tour. Just use this, you know, for the
That's a good.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah.
Peter, we have to get a copy.
I think you guys have it.
Yeah, the council should have the plate.
It's from memory. From memory, the copyright was between three marae and the district council to show a partnership.
Nice.
I engaged a map. There was someone initially from Porirua who was involved in map making.
Yeah.
And then there was a guy in Greytown, Barry Bridley, I think. Yeah. So he helped. And a good friend, Gary Tricker, who's internationally recognised as an artist, he did his sketch of a bit of fishing, you know.
But it is a good,
yeah.
My dad was on that committee.
Yes, yeah.
So what were the challenges that you had when you were on the Māori Standing Committee?
Well, it was under resourcing, the time frame, and also the responsibility of attempting to take issues back to the marae and interfacing on the marae. And I used to say the same things with the regional council, that process needs to be resourced and it needs to be acknowledged at the time frame, instead of having all these acts of parliament which just don't fit into Māoridom. It's nuts, you know. And also the expectation and the demand on kaumātua to visit sites, give information, be on tap, and at the same time the hospital board wanted them, and then the education board wanted them, and you know, and it's you know, it's a hell of a demand, and there was no understanding, there was no support, and I can remember. I think it was 3 occasions we went out to Wharekaho and saw the place in various stages. And yeah, I sort of said, something needs to be done, because I would pick up, you know, the aunties and would drive down there for the day and would wander around and, you know, give a report, but there was no acknowledgement for, you know, and I said, you know, the old people will not, that they won't, you've got to give the koha, you know. So a lot of the old people just, you know, just weren't acknowledged.
I'm going to give it away.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I was just going to say, you might remember too, when I joined the committee, our primary role, and there would have been, you would have left by then, but our primary role in those very early days for me seemed to be really to be there to help consult on resource consent.
Yes. Yeah.
And again, for us to look at a consent to see whether it was applicable and whether we needed to have some input on it. And that was all part of the treaty obligation in terms of consulting or the partnership aspect.
But on that note, I remember talking to the district council and sort of saying, we need to look at the resource consents. You don't make the decision for us. Yeah. So, you know, the process was, you know, struggle.
And it became a bit of a problem. I remember the likes of the old man and Dan and all of it. You know, you get a document like that.
Yeah.
And there was no way that we were going to read that.
Yeah.
And yet there was an expectation that we had to read it by whatever time it was. And so we ended up trying to get those documents abridged or you know, a lot of the stuff that was irrelevant to us. But we didn't make a lot of progress until recently, until around this group here started. We were basically in that sort of mode for majority of my time here until someone brought up about our terms of reference. And that started the ball roll in terms of the change. And it's taken a long time.
Yeah, and there was sort of, you know, some of the issues that came up, I remember thinking, like, with, at the time, I remember, you know, I was trying to think of a lot of things in the last few days. And I remember things like when there were subdivisions to a water body, at the time, the district council would only acknowledge the Ruamahanga. So there was no provision for any stream or river to have a riparian plant, you know.
That's changed.
That has changed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of those things just didn't make sense to me, you know. So it was just you knew about the ability of riparian planting to assist with a number of matters.
Isn't that funny? Because that's taken a whole, like, you know, decades for that learning to come to light and just acknowledge how important tributary waterways are.
And I can recall the numerous discussions with regional council with the assurance and voicing what I had heard from Marae and Hapu. And the regional council saying, there's no worry about water. But then 2 water bodies were over extracted. And then other issues became, you know, so a lot of the issues that were of concern, just not a priority.
Yeah, you look at New Zealand as a country and its timeline, governments over the years and the priorities of those governments and how they directed the country. And the whenua, unfortunately, in our waterways is one that's been pushed to now. We've got no choice but to deal with it. So, yeah, where's the cross? Yeah, the cross bit. Questions?
Any questions?
Karen, you've always got a question. Come on.
Were you around when they put in the diversion living here?
No, that happened before I came to live here. Yeah.
There's discussion around making some changes in that. To allow more water to flush through the lake.
It's, well, the whole hydraulics and I mean the intervention around those wetlands.
Anything else, anybody? Okay, Kapoi. Oh, thank you, Peter, for coming in to have a chat with us. I really appreciate you doing that. When you said yes, you would, I was going, wow. No, Kapoi, thank you very much.
But it's but with the 9 years on the council, I always sort of thought, you know, the council got a bad rap, really. Very few people turned up to public meetings. The community, I found, was very quick to criticise. But, you know, I think the struggle for an organisation to have 3 small towns with 3 infrastructures and the roading, you know, like the cost of roading. Everyone, and when people sort of bleat on about their rates, I always used to take it back to how much they spend on their car, you know. And, so, yeah. So, it's quite a hard thing, I think, for councils to remind the community. When I was getting the photocopying, when Steph was helping me out, I thought that was a good thing about the photocopier, what you get for your rates, the list of all the...
Thank you.
Does that get sort of circulated?
Yeah.
It does.
You can join us for our karakia.
Oh.
Everyone? When you hear, kia wārea, kia māma, kia nākau, ki nana, wairoa, I te ara tāne, koia, whakaari, kairia, kairia, aki ki runga, tutu, whakakawatina, tina, tai.